Welcome to the latest episode of the Slightly Forgotten podcast. Today I'm joined by former RAF regiment gunner Craig Richardson. His tale is one of turning very difficult situations into positives. Very interesting stories, and really hope you enjoy the show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thanks for listening.
How the hell are you?
I'm good, mate. Your dog's like, what's going on right now?
I've had to boot mine out. They tend to come in at the worst times. And then whenever the door goes, they go bananas. So just drive me potty.
Yeah, she's all right. She's pretty cool. She's like, because it's so early, she's like, what are we doing up? Normally she doesn't get up till a bit later, you know? So
Yeah, my missus just started taking them out first thing in the morning. And they ate it. They're really reluctant to like go along with her, but she drags them. So yeah. How have you been anyway? Thanks for coming on.
yeah, no, of course, mate. Yeah, good. You know, just life gets, just it moves along. And before you know it, you're nearly 40. You're like, wow, what's going on here?
Yeah,
good, mate.
true. You turned 40, didn't you?
Nah, this year. Yeah, I'm 40 this year, so September I'll be 40.
You got any plans?
No, I might go home, mate, for a bit. Go see the family, because obviously being here, you got to plan everything in advance. Like,
Yeah. Where are you based over there?
so I'm in New Jersey.
I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just outside New York, so I can actually see the New York skyline on part of my commute to work sometimes. So
Oh, that's fucking mega, that, isn't it?
it's nice,
Absolutely
mate.
mega.
Yeah, I do take it for granted sometimes,
Yeah. You do though, don't you? It just becomes your normal.
Exactly, like people like it's their lifelong ambition or dream to go to New York, and I just pop into New York to go watch Tottenham play. And I'm just like, just get out.
Is there any of them places over there that have got them, like the immersive bars? Have you ever seen them?
No, that looks like I think that's like a West Coast based thing. It's like a
Yeah.
California thing, but they're
At
pretty cool.
Vegas,
They
isn't
look
it?
good.
Oh, so
Yeah,
good. So good.
it
What
looks nuts, doesn't it?
I'd avoid one today though, the derby.
Oh yeah, of course, that's lunchtime kickoff, isn't it? Yeah.
Right, okay. So I take have you listened to any or
Yeah, I've listened to all of them actually. I just finished
right.
a Woodsy one yesterday. I was at work and I just stick it in at work and I was listening to it at work, mate. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, good. So like the structure and the premise of it all and everything. So
Yeah,
what I'll do is I'll just throw it over to you just to, give that info about yourself, the lead up to joining up, and then we'll get into it a bit more deeper and
yeah.
proper. All right, mate. All
Yep.
right. So so welcome, Craig. Nice to see you again. It's been a long time, but I'm glad that you agreed to come on. I appreciate your time. Appreciate it's early morning over there. So. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the basis of the show is for you to tell your story. We'll start from the beginning, as you're a little bambino. So go from there, mate. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm Craig Richardson then. Obviously, I'm from Norfolk, Norwich, Norfolk, I was born. So not too far away from Honington, where I ended up going for the basic training. Sort of straight out of school, did okay in school. B's and C's, nothing too major. Didn't really have any career plans, anything I wanted to go into per se. But yeah, finished school, had like a weekend job at like a garden centre. They ended up offering me a position just to work there full time. Usual stuff, just, sort of fresh out of school, just doing what needs to be done. I had a mate who worked in a factory. Ended up going over there. We're making like roof trusses for like housing and stuff. Again, you're 17 years old at the time, pretty much, and you got a good little bit of money, still living at home, enough money to go out drinking at weekends and stuff. And then it just sort of got to an end, and I just kind of like needed to do something with my life, really. That's where the RAF sort of the RAF came into my thoughts. But my dad is basically, he was a fireman, and he was telling me or talking to me about going in as a firefighter, getting that career, coming out and sort of going to like an airport one day or something. So I looked into it, went up to the careers office, went in, told him my, GCSEs, B's, C's and that, nothing, like I said, middle of the line, sort of nothing too major. And then they started talking to me about non-commissioned aircrew. So I looked into it, they gave the info, looked pretty good. I saw the RAF regiment at the same time, looked into that. Again, looked pretty good, looked like they'd done some good stuff. So really, when I went into there and then done the aptitude test, the non-commissioned aircrew was my first choice, and then regiment was the second choice. Did the aptitude test, I was, I think like 3 or 4 marks off from getting non-commissioned aircrew. And I had to wait like 6 months to do the test again. And I was like, I just need to do something with my life, get out of the factory sort of thing. And that's it. Signed up for the RAF regiment. And then, as you know, and obviously people have talked about in the past, we've done the PCAT course, that 3-day course. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't remember if I was on the same one as you or not. Because one of the stories you said about the guys dropping stuff out their Bergen, I was like, that
No,
happened on one of mine. No?
yeah, I think you were on the one after me. The
Right.
way that the courses fell, obviously
Yeah.
the start of yours was after the start of mine, the basics. So I think you were on the one after. But I dare say that happens regularly. You always have some clusterfuck, don't you? So
Yeah, exactly. So you go there, and as you know, it's a 3-day course. They talk you over things and the expectations, and do a little bit of field craft and that. And I enjoyed it. The fitness side, we had to do like a little tab. I can't remember, it was like 2 miles, 3 miles, whatever it was. And I was pretty fit. I was pretty healthy at the time. I kept up front. I kept all the way at the front. All I did was matched this guy's feet, the corporal's feet. I just matched what his pace setting in that, and I stood on his heels for the whole time round, and I done pretty well. You get to the end, and then when they sort of talk to you about how the course went, how they think you did, like kind of being up the front kind of went against me a little bit. He said, "Look," he goes, "Look, you're a fit lad, but you didn't go back and help anyone else out. You're pretty jacked." And I was like, "Ah, okay." So that switched my thinking a little bit, thinking like, all right, I can help other people out. So that's what helped me into basics when I took it eventually. I just sort of had that in the back of my mind. Instead of doing what I needed to do, you sort of look at other people and sort of help them through as well. So that little PCAT course definitely works. It does.
yeah,
You've
it's
got needs.
yeah, it's good for the purpose of that, isn't it? In terms of even if you're 100% sure that you want to go in, if there's any doubt, it'll kind of get rid of that, won't it? And it's a good little bit of preparation for you,
Yeah,
just to
exactly.
solidify the decision, really.
Yeah, it was good. And similar thing to like what happened with you. That when we had to go with the speed march from somewhere to somewhere in threes. And like this lad had all his stuff out, like his Bergen out, it's just stuff tumbling everywhere. And I remember seeing it all, and like, oh man. So we get to the end, and the corporal's like, every single piece of thing I find on the way back up there, we're doing 10 push-ups. So we turn around, and we're at the back of the pack, we're going up. And I didn't see anything on the floor, and I'm like, sweet, we got picked up, whatever. We get to the top, and he's like, 10, 20, 30, 40. Just, and we're like, oh my God, we're trying to do all this with the Bergens on and that. So little things like that, and you're like, all right, you kind of know what you're getting into. But yeah, no, it was a good time. And then I didn't go on the next course. I ended up going on the Capitals on 2006. So I was 19 at the time. So I started doing all the PCAC training and that, like 18, and then 19. I sort of went into basics, and obviously that's where we sort of met in the Capitals course.
Yeah, so I had a similar thing actually on the PGAC, where you say about the punishment. So for ours, it was however many bits of kit they went. It was like a distance kind of thing where you had to sprint. And me, I've never had that fast twitch thing, where sprinting is sprinting never came naturally to me. So I
Yeah,
thought, oh shit. So they went, right, you see the tree, go. So it was like a race, wasn't it? And we're all like running. I'm like, oh no, I'm in this for the long haul here. So I had to go back and forth about 10 times. And I actually thought that had ruined me. That I thought, there's no way they're going to allow me, because I'm like, I'm not a fast sprinter. I can run and stuff, but like sprinting was never my forte. And I was worried going into that interview that that'd like go against me. But the fact that I kept doing it and kept doing it, I think, it played out quite well in the end. I never, crumbled and never said, "Oh, I'm not doing this," kind of thing. But even little things like that, it's enough to put people off, isn't it? It's hard.
exactly. Even like in that 3 days, I try to weed out people who think it's just going to be an easy ride, and that follows on into basic training. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Right. So moving into basics then. The initial experience, like the first few weeks, was it a bit of a shock to the system, or did you integrate well? And how did you find the integration with the rest of the course?
yeah, I think it integrated well. I think, naturally you look around, everyone's in the same kind of boat, what I mean? Similar ages, some younger, a couple of older. But I think in that initial time, you're just too busy getting stuff done to be like thinking about things. You know what I mean? You got to do things every day, and you're with lads similar and that. And again, you're just helping each other out. You're all sort of in the same sort of path of life at that time. I think it integrated pretty well. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed basic training. As we touched upon, the first couple of weeks is torture, because they want to get people out of there who don't really want to be there. And I think Woodsy talked about it in the other episode. He was saying about the one of the very first inspections. I remember everything was just going on, like beds were getting flipped, like someone trying to throw a bed out the window. You're just like, you're looking at each other, you're like, what is going on, man? It's just, there's nothing you could have done about it. Your bed could have been like perfect, pristine, could have been out of a showroom, and it still would have gone out the window. It doesn't really matter, you know? So naturally, just like that, like, whoa, that whirlwind of what's going on. It's pretty scary at the time, but you know what? You know, you think about it afterwards, you know exactly why they're doing it, and it made sense.
Yeah. And you laugh about it all afterwards, don't you?
It's great.
So it was fun, like you say, basics to a point. Obviously a struggle, but to a point it was fun. Was there any point where you had doubts, or was there a point where you thought, "Do you know what, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing here. This is 100% for me."
Yeah, I just enjoyed it all the way along, really. I think I would say enjoy it, not like in a weird way that I really enjoyed getting beasted in that, but like I enjoyed the day to day. Like I knew what was sort of happening, what we had to do, like the expectations. Like every single day was like it was just a builder every day, and it was good. I enjoyed that kind of like structure. And you know, we'll touch upon it later, but like when you go into the squadron, that kind of changes a little bit. You're like, you go to the squadron, you're waiting to be told what to do, as opposed to like in basics, you're like, you know what you have to do every single day. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the day to day. I enjoyed the lads, like everything really. Just the little bit of downtime we got together. Just it was all fun. It was all fun.
Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of touches on the camaraderie, especially at that point in basics, because you are all at the same level. Do you have any moments you can elaborate on, like points of camaraderie, or any experiences you had where you all had to just club together to get through something?
I mean, most of the field crafts, as you know, were just torture. And that one, I think we touched on it. You guys touched on it as well. But the dig X, when we had to do the sleep deprivation and dig in that trench, that was just ridiculous. There was like in a clay mud field or wherever it was. We're just like all trying to do is hallucinating and everything, trying to dig this thing. It just that was probably one that sticks in your mind a lot. But just generally, just field crafts. I can't think of any one particular thing. There's plenty of opportunities or moments, but I just think like generally just that just being out and doing those sort of things, the NBC stuff, and you know the physical side and that. But yeah, I can't really think of one particular moment though.
I'll give you a moment, which it wasn't actually part of the course, but it was whilst we were on the course. And I think it was like early stages of when YouTube was getting big and everything. We all had, I think, the biggest roll mat war you can imagine. And it got recorded, and I think it was put on YouTube at one point. But that kind of thing was like a regular occurrence, wasn't it? Like just pure madness, like 30, 40 lads just all absolutely battering each other with these fucking roll mats, all like,
Exactly.
all with your ammo. It's just stuff like that. It just gets you through, doesn't it? Because you'll have a terrible week, and then you'll just have that point where it just takes all the pressure off, and you just like rebuild for the next week.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said earlier, you know, we're all going through the same thing at the same time and in pretty much the same stage of our lives. So I mean, it was great, man. I had a good time in basics. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Just going back to the Digex as well. Yeah, it was a hell of a struggle. I don't think people had realised just how hard that is when you have no sleep and you're constantly on the go 24 hours of the day. Like you say, hallucinating, falling asleep when you walk in. It was the most bizarre scenario. You know, at the end where you've all dug your trenches, when you're all complete, they said to us, right, fill them in.
Yeah, you're like, right, you got to bug out, you got to dig
Remember
out. And
that?
you're just like,
Fill them
what?
all in. What did you think of that?
I mean, we just spent 5 days doing this thing, and now you're dragging it all back in. It's just the dumbest thing. You're like, why do we do this? But like you know, in those times we had like the helicopters coming in. We had to get like on the back, and that. I remember just looking around, and everyone's just like asleep in the back of the helicopter. Just quick 5 minutes, just get some sleep, just
Yeah.
anything. I think one of the corporals, one of our, I think it was Gilmore we had. We done some like you know like nighttime sort of some sort of drill, and I think we end up in the back of one of the like a Land Rover or something, and he just let us get a quick like 10, 15 minute sleep because he could see how bad it was. He knew how bad it was. He let us
Yeah.
get a quick little power nap in, and then we went back to it. So they all knew as well, but it's just part of it. And that's probably the worst field they could have picked in Stanton. That was,
Yeah. Pure chalk.
yeah, it was horrendous.
It was bizarre because, like you say, you can never function on that, can you? You can't function like that,
No,
especially like I know sleep is precious and all that kind of thing, but realistically, you're never going to fucking function like that ever.
Nah,
So it's a
nah.
bit of a bizarre task that, I think. But like I say, yet another challenge. Right. So anyway, you was made senior man around probably halfway through the course. At that point, did you feel any added pressure? And did the leadership role come naturally to you?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel too much pressure per se. I think obviously they see something in you, whether you don't even see it in yourself. But they offered it to me. It's one of those things you can't really turn down. You can't just be like, nah, I don't really want this. So if they sort of tell you you're going to be senior man, you're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And again, it's fine. But there's a couple of people because I took over from you, right?
Well,
And
you
there's
actually there was an interim, if you like. I don't know if you call, but Fraser Barton was given it, I think, for a day.
really, I don't remember. It's for a day.
I'm fairly sure he had it for a day, and I don't know what went wrong. Maybe I can get him to elaborate one time, but I'm sure he had it for like a day or a couple of days, and then he got moved aside, and you was put in the position. But yeah, anyway, going
Yeah.
back to that, yeah. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, again, the people on the course who kind of dick around a bit at the back, you got to give them a little bit more attention just to make sure they're listening and fall in. But again, it's just the timing, it's just making sure everyone's ready. Like 5 minutes, the regiment timings, it's just 5 minutes before the time, but then you have to do 5 minutes before the 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like all this sort of silly stuff. You're just constantly thinking and just making sure you get people in the right place at the right time. But no, again, like I enjoyed it, but like there came a point, I was a couple of weeks in, I was like, or like 4 or 5 weeks in, or whatever, I was like, all right, someone else will get it now. And it just never came.
yeah,
I think I saw it all to the end of the course, and I was like, I don't really want this to the end of the course. I wanted someone else to slip in and just so I could just get back to it. But I guess, like I said, that they saw something in me. And again, I think it went back to that PCAC, when they said, go back and help someone else out instead of being at the front, just being like, you can run, turn around, help someone else, grab someone else. So if you're in the field craft, help them with something, and I think that's probably what they saw, like a little bit of that, without me even realizing that they were watching it, But no, again, it was an honor, and then I enjoyed, going with the lads through it and that. But like I said, sometimes you got to sort of switch on a little bit more, being the senior man and just making sure things get done, really.
yeah, because you also have to deal with your own shit as well, don't you? It's not,
Mm.
and I know the numbers were down a little bit at the point where you had it, but dealing with 20 odd blokes isn't an easy task for anyone on top of the stuff that you're trying to get through yourself. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I felt it to that extent, but yeah, I mean, I think it came naturally to me in a way that, like you say, I wasn't really aware. It just seemed to slot into the position and just get on with it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
But there was
I think you had it easy. To be fair, I think everyone was ready made at that point.
exactly, mate. That's probably why they just left me until the end of the course. But like I said, I remember you talking about before the inspections that were funny, like because you got to go through all of them, and you knew which people were kind of like a little bit weaker. And you're standing there and you're like, something's going to happen in your mind. You're like, oh no, not again. Like just the simplest little things, tiny little things. It's like, come on, guys. And then you have to make sure that those people next inspection don't get pulled up on it, because then it could look like it hasn't pulled down onto you too much. So little things like that. But it was funny. It was funny listening to the juniors, the corporals, just like ripping these guys apart. Some of the stuff they come out with and that. I remember one lad, he kept his lockers like locked. He thought he would get away with an inspection by going to the med center and pretending he was injured. I think you were senior man this time, but like he locked everything up. It's like, yeah, I got to go to the med center. I got a bad foot or something. The juniors, the corps, they just cut all the locks off. They knew exactly what he was trying to get away from, like the inspection. They just ripped everything out. You just can't get away from it.
No, no, they've seen it all before, haven't they? So they've done everything. They've been
Exactly.
through every
Yeah.
scenario. So right. So in that time, then, was a mistake from someone or an issue that you had to fix, or have you take the heat for in that role?
Good question. Honestly, off the top of my head, I cannot think of anything right now. I don't know if it's just because it's been 20 years ago or what, but
Yeah, it's a lot in
um,
it. So
it's a long time, mate. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there was plenty where I had to kind of sweep under the table. Going back to last week's interview, there was a point where I was questioned a few times on who was disruptive, who was a bit of a nightmare, and it got to a point actually where I actually tell them about James because I had that many people coming to me saying, I can't deal with him, I can't deal with him, I can't deal with him. I took him aside a few times And he admitted it last week. He was very immature and had to deal with a lot of things at that point where he probably couldn't process. So when I had that conversation with him, it didn't go down too well, but I think he understood as it went on. And that was a hard point what I had to deal with, because it's not natural to go talking shit about people and, people you get on with as well. It wasn't an easy thing to deal with, but a lot of the time you kind of have to try and sweep it under the carpet, because otherwise the rest of the course will get in a lot of shit for it.
Yeah, exactly. In that group punishment, But like you said, I think I had a little bit easier towards the end of the course, mate. Everyone just kind of, been a few weeks, all the weaker ones were out, and we sort of stayed in line, so to speak.
Yeah. So okay then. So moving on. What would you say would be a highlight of your time in basics?
I don't know. I think for me, personally, I got awarded top student again. I don't really know how or why, but like top student and top fitness. So like those two accolades, that was definitely unexpected, but it was nice. It was nice to get, of course. It doesn't mean anything when you go into squadron. No one even like talks about that or cares about that. But it's nice to be recognised as that in the course. So that was probably had to be a highlight for me. But I think just getting through the course as well, because you see so many guys you're with and they get recoursed for injuries and stuff like that. So like just trying to stay fit, which is obviously easier said than done. It's just that was the hardest thing. Just trying to stay fit, just making sure you get to the next sort of exercise goal or field craft in that, so just generally as a whole, I think for me personally, getting to the end and just having that sort of top student, top fitness thing was definitely it was nice to sort of achieve.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that and how that made you feel. It obviously is very prestigious, because there's a lot of guys who go through the course, and there can only be one top recruit. I think it was a fitting accolade for you to have, for the reasons why you kind of just pointed out. You kind of grow as you go along, don't you? And you took the role as senior man. You fell into that position quite comfortably, and you did all the the roles and responsibilities with it, admirably. I think all that played a part. I think there was probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 people who it could have gone to, but I think any of the people who were in my head would have been deserving of it. So yeah, it was definitely something I would have been very proud of it. With it came a flight. Was it a flight on a jet or something? I can't remember exactly what it was, but you had a reward for it, didn't you?
Yeah, that was it. I think we were in the classroom and we were getting told about something. I think you guys had to go to some shooting range, some range or something, and they were like, apart from Richardson, who's going off to fucking Holyhead or somewhere to go get this little flight in what was it? It's the same jet they use for the Red Arrows, but it was like they use it for training. And I remember some officer picked me up. We drove out to Holyhead, which is like just off the top of like North Wales or something. It was miles away. We drove there. We got into this little training base, and it was awesome, mate. Just being like 18 or 19 years old, seeing all these like fighter jet pilots just in training. They're just like sitting around, just chilling, looking at the weather, the radar, the maps, waiting for like a little break in the clouds and stuff, so they can literally they'd all scramble and just get in the jets and just go off and have a little piss about in the sky. You're like, wow, man, I was like, I'm in the wrong trade here. This is nuts. But
I think
eventually the next. Go on. I would say the next day, was so I had like the training sort of thing we'll talk about. And then the next day we ended up getting the flight. So I was up there for, I don't know, 40 minutes, maybe half hour. It was pretty cool, man. It was good. It was surreal just to be there in that moment. Just think like this is alley as fuck. This is what this is what the RAF is about. You know what I mean? You think fighter jets. You don't think about sort of sprogs on the ground. So it was good. It was fun.
I think that'd be everybody's dream, to be fair. Anybody in the Air Force would love to do that.
Oh man, that's man points, isn't it? Look at that.
Yeah.
You're a fighter jet pilot. That's the ultimate, right?
Especially when you all sit around watching Top Gun all the time as well.
Yeah, I think we reenacted that out in Afghan a couple of times, didn't we, with the dog tags trying to
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely looked the same as it did in the movie. But...
No, I would have been the guy passing out, mate, if I'd have gone on it. No, I'd have loved to have done that. Definitely jealous of that, but no, like you say, it's part and parcel of it, isn't it? So right, moving on then. Obviously, past basics, we've done the field gunners as part of it. It's a more progressive kind of style of learning, techniques and doing the firing ranges, all that kind of thing. How did you find that? Did you find it worthwhile?
With the field gunners?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Just because you do a few more weapon systems, really, and it's a little bit more relaxed. It's not like it's not as stressful or as tedious as the as basics. You know what I mean? You kind of left your own devices a bit, being like, all right, be here by this time, be there by that time. We're going off on this, training exercise. It was definitely a little bit more relaxed. I think it was good. I think it was needed. Obviously, I feel that like, that sort of learning or that even just the weaponry before we went to the squadron. So it was good. I mean, I don't really have any memorable experiences from it. I
No.
think it was just, shooting and just meeting a few other lads who were going to different squadrons, really. It was good. It was all right.
Yeah, I'm the same. I thought it was quite useful in the sense of dealing with people who've been on the squadron and have that experience. Just kind of like say the atmosphere around it is just a bit easier to deal with and kind of gives you a bit of foresight into how it's going to be on squadron. So did you notice any change in yourself from the day where you joined up to passing out? What kind of changes did you see in yourself?
Uh, I mean, I think as soon as I passed basic, I think I like you can relax a little bit more, you just take that breath, and I think I didn't worry too much about my fitness as much. Like all I worried about was being fit and being, in basics. But when it comes to like, getting ready to, especially going into squadron, you kind of just sort of relax a bit more and sort of fit in a bit more, and I didn't worry about like my fitness, for example, sort of things. I still kept fit and healthy, but I didn't do as much as I probably could have done. Just done like the bare minimum to sort of just to get by, really. But other than that, that's really it. Just that kind of like switching from, like I said, I enjoyed the day to day of the basics. I enjoyed knowing what I was doing, and I just kind of like when I went to squadron, I wouldn't say a struggle, but like I didn't enjoy just hurry up and wait. You know what I mean? You're standing around waiting to be told what to do, as opposed to knowing what you need to do. So that was probably the only real difference. Was just that kind of that mindset of how it goes from the basics to, you know, into field gunners into sort of squadron, really.
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Like you say, you have all that extra time, and it's just I mean, I struggle me because, like you said, the structure of basics really helped me, and it gave me a structure I never had before joining up. So
Yeah.
then to like revert back to that, it was weird. It was weird in the sense that, like you say, hurry up and wait is the fucking worst coin
Yeah.
of phrase I think I've ever heard.
That's horrible, isn't it? But like before, I never used to smoke, but everything was like a fag break. Everyone's like, right, quick smoke break, come back in 5 minutes. So I ended up finding myself smoking like a few months later. I
Yeah.
never really smoked. I didn't need to smoke, didn't want to smoke. I'm just like, next thing you know, you're like, everything's a fag break. So, all right, I'll start smoking.
Yeah, you didn't want to be
Right.
left alone, did you? You're like, no,
No, exactly.
everyone else is going off, so I'll join them.
Yeah, there's only so many teas you can drink, right?
And
Yeah, like I said, I didn't worry about it as much. So I feel like I tapered off a little bit. Just did what I needed to do on like squadron runs on Fridays or whatever. You know what I mean? I never did anything extra. You know what I mean? I just did what basically needed to be done in
yeah.
squadron. So
So did you feel any, obviously with being top recruit and all that, moving on to the squadron, you said before that, it's not really anything that people pay attention to, but personally, did you feel any pressure to perform to that level or like you say, just taper off and just be comfortable as you
no.
were?
Yeah, I think if anything, I didn't want to be on the squadron being like, I was top guy. Like, I didn't want to say anything about it. I didn't think I mentioned it to anyone. It's not something really you want to take into your flight or section or whatever and to be like, oh, I was top mate. You know what I mean? No one really cares about that. So you just want to get
No.
into the squadron, keep your head down, integrate as best you can, meet the lads. So that was it really. Again, yeah, I didn't really take any of the pressure in that. Obviously, it was nice to have it, but then I just put it aside and just went off to the squadron. I don't think anyone really even knew I was like top recruit or anything. So
No. I found the transition quite easy in the sense that the lads were more than welcoming and helpful in that transition. So it wasn't a bad thing for me. But I think you did right. I mean, I wouldn't want to put that target on my back because you all, even though it is something to be proud of, especially the higher ranks, would just target you for everything, wouldn't they?
yeah, yeah, nah, exactly. And I think, like you said, just meeting up with the lads and just trying to integrate as quick as possible and like learning from them. And I think as well, you guys touched on it with Stino and that, but like we were gutted. I think we both were that we weren't going down to Newton. Like that
Yeah.
was awesome. Like, and then they're like, oh no, they're coming to one squadron, to Honington. It's just like, oh. And I live in Norfolk. I'm like, 45 minutes down the road. Sometimes you join up and you want to go a little bit further. You want to see some different things. And then they're like, oh, you go over here. And I'm like, oh man, it's like, you just done all the basic training, and then you're like, great, I'm just going to stay here and just look at the same buildings and look at every single day and run around the same airfield like every week and that. You're just like, all right, whatever. But it was good in the sense that if I wanted to pop home, like you boys had like a lot of traveling, like Friday, you didn't get home until like late Friday night. I could be home and in the pub within the hour. So that was the only good advantage really for me, like being so close. But I do wish we had a little Nuki experience though. All the stories from there were just amazing, right? But
I
yeah,
know. It's something. Yeah, I really do. I've never been. I've still never been. I'll have to go. I'll have to arrange a weekend there one time.
there you go. I'm up for I'm up for it, mate. If you plan it with enough advancement, I'll be there.
Yeah, of course, of course. Right. So, obviously, Iraq was your first deployment soon after arriving on the squadron. What was preparation like for you for that, and what were your thoughts on the deployment?
Again, I mean, we're fresh, we're green. You know, what I mean, you want to go out. Obviously the Iraq war that's happening, and you want to go out. Obviously that's what you join up for. At some point, you're like, all right, this is gonna be fun. So all the training and that, you go out there. Um, you just do all the training that needs to be done. You get out there, and it is different. It's a little bit of a reality check, like you said. I think like Woodsy touched on it as well in a couple episodes plus. And you sort of get there, and the heat, the smell, just like everything's kind of different. You go on the base and that, you're like, all right, training doesn't, I don't know how to say it, like it doesn't really sort of follow into the tour. Like you do the basics training that you need to do, but you can't really replicate what is out there, sort of thing. And being young and being fresh and that, you want something to happen. You want the action to happen to some degree. And as we've absolutely hammered that tour with rockets and that, and the realization really sort of turns around 180 on its head that you don't really want this to happen. You know what I mean? You want to just be okay. And obviously that threat and the thought and the feeling and everything of the rockets and everything, that was enough to just, you wanted to be out on the ground. You wanted to be out on the other side of the fence because it was probably safer at some point than being in the base. So that wasn't too fun.
No, I was going to say, moving further into it, like how did you deal with the experiences that we had over there? Like you say, it wasn't fun, but the reality was we had to deal with it one way or another.
Yeah, and obviously as it has been discussed on here, I was on B flight where we lost the Lit Pete and Dunny, and it was crazy, like little scenario how it happened, how I wasn't there when that rocket dropped into the lines because I was up at like QRF or something, and I think Anderson, one of the lads, I don't know if it was him or something happened with the snatch. We were supposed to drive from QRF down to our lines, and we were going to get some stuff. Like the lights were left on or something. Like the battery just like died on this snatch. So we ended up spending like, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We're like bumping it, like pushing it down the road. So that little time that it took us to sort of jumpstart this snatch kind of delayed us from being literally in the lines to get stuff to take back up to QRF. So I remember pulling in, we sort of turn around and you hear the sirens go off and I go to open the door and Anson's like, nah, just stay in because, like you guys mentioned as well, like we were told to stay in the snatch because it's probably safer to stay in. So I just shut the door. I remember just looking out the front window screen of the snatch and just seeing it, the rocket drop, everything sort of fucking implode really. It wasn't really much of an explosion, everything sort of stayed inside the HES, inside the blast wall thing.
The walls, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just unbelievable, just surreal to see it happen. It was just fucking, it just didn't feel real, mate. You know what I mean? You see everything dropping in, you see lads sort of stumbling out, you see lads running in to go and help, and I remember getting out and trying to get in, and I think because it was our sort of flight and that, we were told to sort of stay back a little bit and just sort of stay out of the way, A, so they could see who was not inside, and then B, who so you didn't go in there and see anyone who was sort of injured. And I think that was tough, I mean, being young as well. I think I was 20 at the time then, so seeing these guys who you go through training with, you sort of met for the last like 6 months or so, then you go in and then you see this happen like right in front of your eyes. It was tough, and obviously everything just got like ripped through, destroyed really. Like our rooms, our personal stuff and everything, that we had to sort of move off to somewhere else. But then when you see the guys who would get injured and obviously the three lads we end up losing, it was unbelievable. I can't even really describe it. I still think about those guys a lot, but just seeing it and watching it was just, it wasn't good, obviously.
No. I was going to say, I didn't know that that was your situation, that you'd seen it and all the events that had happened in that way. Um, so moving past that, and once we still come to terms with what had happened, but once the dust settled and you kind of look back, I mean, how do you feel like about that? Because I mean, for other than for an error with your vehicle, there's every chance you were there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. There's been a few instances. I'll mention some more later on, but there's like so many close calls where something should have like changed. Something I should have been somewhere else, or I could have been somewhere else, but something else happened to stop me from being in that place. So sometimes you think like, you don't believe in all that angel stuff and that, but you think sometimes someone's looking over you a little bit. So definitely, I didn't really process it at the time, but then like when you think about it later on, you're like, wow, that was so close. I was getting ready to go in there and just grab a few bits to take back to QRF, just to settle down for a couple of days. And you don't realize how lucky you are sometimes, and just the small little, like, what's it, like the butterfly effect, what I mean? One little thing can happen here and it changes something over there. So yeah, it was, even now still I think about it sometimes. Like I tell my wife about, the stories and that sometimes. And I'm like, it's crazy how that should have happened. Could have happened. You know what I mean? But you can't really live life like that too much, but you have to look back and reflect sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't really gone too deep into it with my family and everything until recently, really. But I mean, at the time, I've said it. There was a bit of guilt because of the relief that I felt because I was asleep at the time on the next set of cabins, and
Yeah.
like I say, unless if them walls weren't there, it could have been a lot worse. So in a guilty kind of way, I had a lot of relief. And I know there's no right or wrong way of kind of processing it and dealing with it, but you do look back and like you say, there are little things where you think, I was very, very lucky there, very lucky.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. But again, you want this stuff to happen. Not that, obviously, you don't want
no,
rockets, to come in, but you want to see some action and something happens. You're like, all right, fuck this. I just want to keep my head down, and get through the rest of the tour. We ended up getting a few guys from QCS. We had like three lads come in to replace the guys who went home injured and obviously who passed away. So we done the repatriation, put the lads on the back of the plane and that. Then, we got them out. Obviously, I think it was great that we could be involved in that. And obviously, it was like a final send off, but then you don't really have much more time to process much. You're back in the rotation, really. I think obviously we had a little bit more time off than the rest of you guys who had to fill in our sort of gaps, really. But then once those lads came over from QCS, we're like, right, let's get back in the rotation. And in some sense, it probably was good to get back in, so you didn't sit around thinking about too much, and you sort of just cracked on with the rest of the job, really.
yeah, because you can struggle in your own thoughts, can't you, a lot of the time.
Exactly.
So where are we? So as the obviously we had the contact in Alwaki. Were you part of that?
Yeah, again, so everything that kind of seemed to happen with this squadron, it was always seemed like B Flight were involved in somehow. And we were on the foot patrol. We were through the market. So I think you guys were on one side. We walked through, and Beardy and I, obviously being the younger, like fresh brogs on the section, we were walking through the village or through the marketplace, and we got through on the edge, on the outer perimeter, and we swapped rounds. So I was like, right, I'll take it now because obviously he walked through, and then we switched positions. So I went to the front of the line, and he went to the back, and then it came through on the radio. There was a contact. So obviously we about turned. We sort of ran into like a building, to a compound, and then that's obviously when Biddy got hit. So again, it was like, 10 minutes after us swapping, I took the ECM. He ended up taking my position at the back of the line with the LMG. I was at the front with the ECM, and he ended up getting whacked. So again, there could have been a small little switch in detail. I was in the position he was in. He ended up, getting hit in the neck, and unfortunately, we sort of went into this compound, and he was on the other side of the wall. And there was me and a couple of QCS lads. Dave Hayden obviously took a lot of the responsibility on this, and there was Rob Williams, Sarge Williams. So we got Beardy out from that wall, and me and the two QCS lads went to get him initially. we had like, cover fire on the top, and I remember bending down to help pick him up, and this round went straight behind me and whacked the wall right beside me. So again, I was inches away, like millimeters away, probably from getting hit there, and you could hear it hit the wall. Naturally, your heart's like panicking a bit. So I ran back into the compound. We get some better cover of fire. We go back out, get him in, and then obviously that's when we realised that Beardy hadn't made it where he got hit. But there's always that hope that you think that he was okay. He wasn't. There's always that small little hope. You see him there on the ground, you just hope that there's something there that he might be okay. And obviously Dave Hayden did what Dave Hayden did. He stripped Beardy of his body armor and stuff, put him on his shoulder, and just sort of ran across and sort of got him out of there. So we didn't 100% been confirmed that he'd passed away, but he had a good feeling. But we always hoped that he was okay. But yeah, then we sort of Dave, he got him out, and then we got all the rest of the stuff, and we got out there. And I remember getting into like a snatch or something. Now I remember seeing the vehicle that you talked about that was in the ditch, like rolled over off to the side or something. So I remember seeing that and just sort of getting out, and again that was surreal. Just how it happened, why it happened, really. I mean, it was just a little routine patrol. I don't think there was any real particular sort of threat at the time, but it just sort of happened. And yeah, again, that sort of that moment where it could have been in a different position at a different time, and it was Beardy. And I went through everything with Beardy, actually. I was on PCAT with Beardy, I went basic training with Beardy. We ended up going to squadron together. We were on the same flight together, we were on the same section together, and he lived opposite me in the block as well. So I couldn't get away from the guy, And then obviously when this does happen, you're just like, you kind of want him to come back and be annoying again, But he was a good lad, young lad, obviously. It's a shame how it happened, and there's I think about it a lot. Obviously, it's tough.
Yeah, yeah. There were definitely tough times to go through. I had a sense on that patrol. Like you say, there wasn't a massive amount of activity, but there was a few skirmishes. I remember with sea flight and things like that. And for me, I don't know what it was, but on that patrol, there was I had a weird sense. I don't know what it was, but I just had a weird feeling. Not that what would unfold would unfold, but I don't know. As soon as we went on the patrol, I think we had like a long stop because we found suspects on the ground, a possible IED. I think we had a big hold up for that, and then we managed to get past that, and then I don't know, the whole situation seemed off to me. You said you didn't notice that or you weren't aware, but I don't know if it was the people who we came across on the patrol or whatever, because the initial contact, we had no idea where it had come from. So we were kind of blind, and then we were getting rounds overhead, and we had no idea which direction it was coming from.
Yeah, maybe because like I said, I think we were like the first to go through the market. You guys might have been off to the side,
We were
or
off the
coming from a
flank,
different angle. Yeah, maybe they just, I don't know, maybe like us going through was kind of like wasn't as suspect, but then maybe they saw you guys, and I don't know, maybe that just sort of rolled in. But again, I didn't remember anything, that feeling anything. But then again, you're sort of just on patrol, doing what you need to do.
So obviously, after all that happened, how there was still a bit of time left on the tour. How did you navigate your way through that with, because a lot happened in a very short space of time around then.
Yeah, exactly. And then at that point, I think a lot of us were just counting down the days. You just wanted to get to the end of the tour. You knew when the tour was going to end, and you're just looking forward to just getting out of there. Really, there's nothing. I don't think we were going to achieve anything after that. Really, it was just a case of just sort of getting to the end of the tour and just getting home, really, and sort of trying to decompress. And they sent you to, where was it? Where was that place we go? Qatar. Yeah. I mean, that's I wouldn't say a joke, but I think it was good. But most of the lads just like, I want to go home. I mean, we don't want to sit here for 2 days. We just rather go home. Like, I don't want to watch a movie and have like 2 beers because you're allowed 2 beers. You just want to go home, So, but it was, yeah, I kind of understand it. But yeah, you just want to go.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you did return home? What was the sense that you had?
I think it was, again, like you said, you want something to happen. You know what I mean? Especially being young and fresh, and you go back and you see you can't really talk about it with anyone else because no one really understands like what you went through. I had a couple of lads who from my hometown who were in the army. So like he, like, especially one of my best mates now, actually, he sort of knew what I was going through a bit, so I could talk about it. But again, you're like 20 years old. I mean, you don't want to like, I don't know, I don't want to say you don't want to show weakness per se, but you don't want to go on about it too much. You sort of just go home and just sort of slot in, just trying to keep moving through, really.
I think that's fair. Like you're in this role, and people expect that to be part of your role, and you don't want to show weakness. We all have it. We all suffered, and we all still suffer. Um, but I think that's fair to say. It is like a sense of putting on a shield and not wanting to show any weakness.
Yeah, exactly. And what was it, like a couple of weeks off? What did we get, like 3-4 weeks off or something before we had to
Yeah,
go
well,
back? I can't
I
remember.
think something like that. I think it may have been less, to be honest. But
Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't a lot, and after what we kind of had to deal with, that decompression, yeah, it was pathetic, really. But
yeah,
and
just get
the
it out
reasoning
there.
for it's a nonsense, yeah. But they have some sort of reason for it, and whatever it was didn't sit well with a lot of people. But we kind of just had to grit our teeth and get through it, didn't we? So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
right.
when I got home, it was just a sense of again relief, just that it was it is the job, but it was a lot to go through in again such a short space of time, and the relief I had was quite overwhelming at times. I was just so happy to just get out there at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, like, when we all got back to squadron, I mean, I don't think I was one of them, but I know people were talking about leaving or didn't want to be there anymore and stuff. So I definitely understood that one, because some of the guys we were on tour with had done tours before. So, I wasn't their first tour, whereas it was our first tour. So after that, just get back to the squadron, just get ready for the next one, really. That was it. I wouldn't say we forgot about the lads. I think there was definitely well remembered in a good way. But, unfortunately, sort of just you do have to just keep going to sort of get
Yeah.
up and then look to the next thing that you got to get ready for, really.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said before, it is the job, it is expected. Um, but when we did return from Basra after getting back on squadron, we were quickly told that we'd have a quick turnaround to get to Kandahar. Um, were you prepared? Were you ready for that, or did you think we could maybe do it a little bit longer?
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. We'll continue listening to Craig's story next week. I hope you enjoyed what you've heard so far. See you next week listening to the rest of his story. So thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow.